don't fill your mind with broken promises and wasted time. And if you fall, you'll always land right in these arms of mine. So don't act like it's a bad thing to fall in love with me. You might look around and find your dreams come true with me. Spend all your time and your money just to find out
Hello, can everyone hear me? I think Jan, you wanted to say something to kick off. I'll just unmute you, Jan. You might have to unmute yourself, Jan.
Good morning.
Hello, Jan.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And are all the women there? I can't see anyone but you.
They are here. For some reason, I can't get their videos on, but we're working on that in the background, so they'll be able to hear you though.
Okay, I just wanted to welcome you all. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. It's great to be able to regroup again, even though it's virtual. And we're very excited to have Grant here from Brand Local. And I think you're going to have a very fantastic morning. And I think it's going to benefit you all greatly. So I look forward to getting your feedback. And I'm sure Grant will look forward to getting your feedback. And if you do need that extra help, Grant will be available to provide that for you after this session, if you have questions or want to progress further on this. So sit back, enjoy the learning. And I'm sorry I can't see you all at the moment, but as Grant said, they're working on that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, a little bit about me. I'm the Managing Director of Brand Local. I've had 30 years experience really in marketing, and I guess it shows my age that I was around in marketing before the internet, or before the internet was mainstream. And I really learnt the craft of marketing really in TV and radio, and also in obviously in print. And back in those days, it was very, very hard. You had to work very hard to get people to to really engage and convert people, because you didn't really have that two-way kind of interaction. So it's a lot easier these days in terms of reading your target audience, but it's also a lot more difficult in the context that we're in a very, I guess, cluttered environment. So if you're marketing in search or you're marketing in social, it's very competitive, highly competitive. So I guess it's double-edged sword. You've got a better connection to your target audience, but you've got to cut through all of that clutter. So just if everyone can let me know if you can hear me on the microphone, okay? Just in chat. Beautiful. Okay. Now, today, really with Google, and I guess this is one of the reasons why I got invited to speak with Google on stage, was that if you've done any Google seminars, Google's very technical. And they talk about how you actually get visibility. And for a lot of people, it's all about visibility. And for me, visibility is only really part of the journey. I mean, it's okay to be seen by 10,000 people, but if you don't convert anybody, it doesn't mean anything. So it's really about the quality of your content. It's the quality of your messaging, how you position yourself online, but most importantly too, how you convert people. So today, obviously, we're going to focus on Google. And very much on organic strategy. There's obviously paid strategy, and I'll touch on that as we move through. But it's really important to think of Google just as a platform, just like social media is a platform, and they're very different in the way that you approach, but they're a platform. And really in marketing, and the first part of this webinar really is about marketing, because if you don't understand the marketing, I guess, drivers or levers that you need to use, you're only really aiming for visibility. So everything that I really do is around about trying to increase conversion rates. And in many cases, and as I move through the webinar, you'll see that you're not necessarily converting on Google. So really, if you're in social media or you're in search, as a marketer, my job is to get that person out of that environment as quickly as possible. And as I touched on earlier, it's very, very distracting. So if you're in social media, you've got to get people away from that distraction. So even though this is a Google webinar, it's very, very highly focused on converting off listing, so off your Google listing. So a little bit about me. I've got got 30 years experience, as I said before, and trusted by Google. I was actually engaged by Google to start Google's first trusted agency for Street View in Australia and New Zealand and Italy. So we set those up back around 2015 when Google My Business really first came to Australia. For the last really, I guess, 15 to 20 years, I've really been in architecture and developing sales funnels and really being able to take somebody, I guess it's the psychology of really taking someone from an environment that they're in and then convincing them that they need your product and then convincing them that you're the only one or the best one to deliver on that product. So that's really the architecture side. I develop platforms, an integration of platforms like messenger chatbots, AI, through landing pages, and then link those all back into platforms that are at the top of the funnel, like social media or search. And it's a really important thing. I think a lot of webinars that I've done before, people talk about, I guess, the approach or the science behind things, but the real practicality of actually developing systems and testing systems and really finding out the nuances of what works and what doesn't work. You really need to be hands-on, I think, to really understand that. And obviously to a content creator, so very strong in the area of video, graphics and designs and graphic design and visual. So they're all the attributes, I guess, that I bring together to develop systems. And as I said earlier, that success on Google isn't just what you do on Google, it's what you do when you take people off Google, and you'll see that as we move through the presentation. One of the things I always say to people are there's two things that you must understand if you're going to be in marketing, and one is a platform. So it doesn't matter what platform you're using, whether it be Google, whether you're using paid organic, whether you're using YouTube, social media, LinkedIn, you must have a very technical understanding of the platform if you're managing your own marketing. But where a lot of businesses, I think, go wrong in marketing is that they really focus on understanding what they need to know just to get the job done in terms of getting their message out. They understand their product really well, but they really don't take the time to really understand their target audience. And that's probably one of the most important things that you really need to understand. You really need to understand people, their behaviors, their needs, their challenges, what they're moving toward, what they're moving away from, so you can actually structure your key messaging. So as we move through here, you'll see that Google is really just a platform that we talk about generating visibility, but really where the success comes is understanding who you're targeting, being very specific and developing your key messaging on Google. So Google will get you in front of a lot of people, but it won't convert. That's up to you with your messaging and how well you understand your target audience. One thing I always say to people, I say, what business are you in? And people will say, I'm in B2B or B2C. And the reality is, if you're in marketing, you're in H to H, and that's human to human. So you're touching on the earlier slide that you really need to understand people as much as you understand your product and you understand technology. So let's have a look, I guess, at the different platforms. So the top image is obviously people shopping, and that would represent Google. And really on Google, the good thing about Google is that people are in what I call a buyer's mode, or they're in an interested or inquiry mode. So they're very, very easy to really capture their attention and drive them into a sales funnel. That's what makes Google so powerful, is that people are either searching for things, whether it be information or something to buy. So you've got them in that mode. When you look at social media is more of a difficult, I guess, or more challenging marketing approach, because you need to interrupt people. And if you really look at those images and you really stood there and imagined, trying to sell something to these people, you could imagine the top people who are in buyer's mode are quite easy. It would be very difficult to go down and, you've got to interrupt those people that are doing their social activities in the social environment. And obviously too, with LinkedIn, say in a business networking. So they're your approaches really, and Google is answering questions. So your content really needs to be designed around, and this is a native strategy to content, it really needs to be designed around answering questions. What are people searching for, and what are they looking for, and what are they going to be compelled to engage in relating to your business? Interruption is a totally different thing. In social media, you've got to use partly entertainment and partly information. So that's a different strategy and more difficult. But on the right-hand side there, you have engage, connect, convert. So engagement strategies are different on different platforms. The connection strategy is similar, and the conversion strategy, which you'll see at the end of this, the last slide in this presentation, the conversion strategy is usually the same. And I'll show you how all that comes together. So how we're going to handle things today, you can actually, you can put questions in the chat, but we're going to move through this pretty quickly because there's a lot to get through. I'm going to stay back and answer questions at the end. So it's always better, I think, if you sort of queue up your questions and we can go through those at the end. I've also, everybody who is in this webinar today, I'm going to do a half an hour strategy session with. And the reason why that's important is because every business is different. Every target audience is different. Your positioning, the way your competitors are in search, it's all different. So really, this is all about just, I guess, raising awareness of, you know, what you need to consider and what the considerations and the lever points and how you need to structure the way that you position yourself online. And it's generic because it covers every business. And then what we can do is that half an hour session, we can really break down and get specific about your business. So if you can go to that link anytime through the presentation or at the end, and you can just book straight into my calendar at a time that suits you. And what that will do, it'll bring up a page like this. And what you want to do is click on the one on the right-hand side here, which is choose time. That's a strategy session there on the right. Okay. So what I might do is I might just launch a poll just to sort of get an idea of where people are at so I can sort of structure the content. There's no point really, there's no sorry, Hope. No, the webinar you can share, sorry, the strategy session you can do at any time. So you can just do it at your convenience. Okay, so let's have a look here. So this one here is really, I mean, how you use Google. Just trying to get an understanding of who's claimed and verified their Google listing. And how you use Google. Do you actually use it just as an online directory, or do you use it as a marketing platform? In other words, are you proactive in doing posts? So you're actually using it as a, similar to how you use social media, I guess, in the way that you're actually posting content regularly. And also too, I just want to get an idea of if you've got any issues as well. So if some businesses have lost their login, their passwords, they can't get into their listing. Some people have their listings marked permanently closed by mistake, and that's a very difficult thing to fix, but I can explain how to do that. And also too, one thing that almost every business I talk to has a negative fake review. So I'm going to actually touch on that today, but I just want to get an idea of who's got reviews on their listings that may be fake or may be negative. And the last question on there is, do you have Google My Business app on your phone? That is really important, because as we move through this presentation, you'll find that being in real time with people is very important on Google, because that's what people are expecting on Google now. So to be able to answer reviews, answer questions, answer messages directly from your Google My Business listing is really important, and that's why you want to have that on your phone. Okay. Great. Okay. So why prioritize Google? I guess in many cases, that's an obvious question. I mean, Google's the largest search engine in the world, and obviously people are on Google actively looking for businesses or information. They're actively trying to solve a problem on Google. But this is a diagram that I find really interesting, because this is the usual marketing approach when you've got, when you're approaching marketing. You say 30% of people know they're not interested, 30% don't think they're interested, and 30% not thinking about it, 6 to 7% open to it, 3% buying now. Hang on, Jan. She's trying to get in. She might not be, Jan, she might not be using the password Google to get in. Just let me know how you go with that. I can get someone to look at that if you like. Okay, so if we switch back to this diagram, just let me know how you go, Jan, with that. This is the usual approach, or the usual dynamic really in marketing. It's the marketing pyramid by Chet Holmes. And really the one thing I love about Google is everybody that's searching for a business in Google is interested. So it's not really 30%, no, they're not interested, 30%. So there's 60 to 90%, you're ahead of the game straight away. So I always say to people, when's the last time you searched in Google? for something you weren't interested in. So people are interested in Google. And I always say too, look, I like social media. I think social media absolutely has its place in terms of marketing. But the thing about Google is that people are actively looking. They're in a buyer's mode. You don't have to interrupt them. So Google really, for me, I'd rather be targeting 100 to 200 people in Google for 2 to 3, 4, 5,000 people on social media, because the conversion rates on 200 in Google are far better than they are when you're targeting a larger audience. Obviously, there's cost associated with getting to a larger audience as well. So Google is free if you use organic. So for me, Google is hands down okay, I'll get someone to look at that, Jan. Google for me is hands down the starting point. Everything should build upon Google. So it's really understanding how you position your business in Google, so you get in front of the most amount of people that are searching. So this is one of the things that I really want to touch on, I guess, early in the piece, is that most people you speak to, they want to get to number one in Google. And that seems to be the number one goal for people to get to number one. And what I can say is that it's not that easy, because if you want to get to number one, you can just do Google ads and that will get you to number one. But the problem is you need to really have a conversion strategy, as I touched on earlier in the webinar, is that you need to have a strategy to convert. Now, this example that I've got here is a prime example of a business. Okay, one sec, Jan. Just one sec. I've just got to try and let somebody in here. Jan, I can't see her coming in. I'm just wondering whether or not she's clicking on the right link, because there's nothing coming up, and she should just be able to put the password in and jump straight in. She doesn't have to be admitted in. My suggestion would be to go back to the link and try the link again. Okay. Okay, so this business here, they've taken an ad out, and they're number one basically in search when you're looking for a local accountant, so accountant near me. The issue with this, if you look over here, this is their listing on Google. So that's their primary image, which is, I was distracted here trying to let this person in. I can't see her, Jan. I don't know what's happening there. So basically, this business here is spending money on Google Ads, and this is the image that they've got on their listing. Now, another issue with this particular business, and this is why a lot of businesses really failed with Google Ads, is if you look at the business, firstly, they've got their listing up here. They're paid number one. So as I said before, it doesn't guarantee success. If you click on their listing, it's garbage tins at the front here. So they're obviously haven't set this listing up. So you've got to think that when someone clicks on that ad, the first thing they're going to come across and see, they're going to look at your business. They're going to do some research. And also too, when you click through to the website, and I'm going to touch on this as we move through, that their website loaded in 11 seconds. And I'll explain this as we move through, that your website is very important. The page that you're sending people through to with a Google ad must load fast, because what they will be getting on statistics is a 70% bounce rate. So firstly, what this business has done, they've paid for ads. They've got a really bad image on Google, on the Google listing. And their website's load speed is very, very slow. So 70% of people will actually leave that website before it loads. So they're only maximum going to get 30% of their potential. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make in their marketing. What a lot of people do is they spend so much money on ads, or they spend so much time developing content to engage, to get in front of people, but they really don't have a strategy to take them beyond that. And as I touched on earlier, it's conversion, which we'll cover today. So really, anybody that runs Google ads really should have a really, really good looking professional Google My Business listing. And they should also consider their load speed. And I'll explain this a bit later on. I don't like using web pages directly out of ads. You'll link your web page to your Google listing, but every ad or every promotion that I do, whether it be social or whether it be search, I always go to a landing page because it loads really, really quickly. And it's really minimizing that bounce rate. There's no point marketing and then cutting out 70% of your audience straight away. So what most businesses do with Google is they use Google very similar to the way they use the Yellow Pages. So they're using it as a directory. So they really, well, a lot of businesses haven't set their listings up properly, which is a problem. But a lot of businesses that actually have their listings set up aren't proactive. They're not really doing anything with their listings. And they're not using it as a platform to connect and to convert people on search. They're just waiting for people to connect with them. And that's very evident when you go through, they haven't got call to actions. They haven't got content that motivates people to take an immediate action. And in search, you've only got a couple of seconds. And as I mentioned earlier too, that it's a very crowded environment. So you don't want to just have a listing that sits there. You've got to have a listing that sets you apart from your competitors, and it gets people to take immediate action. So that's why a lot of businesses in terms of organic will fail on Google, because they're not really setting themselves apart from their competitors. And the reason why it's important, there's Google's Insights for Brands in 2020, and you can Google that. And it actually is I think it's about a 30 or 40 page document. And it gives you insights into, what are the trends basically of people in search, and how are they behaving in search. So this is information, when I mentioned earlier, understanding people, understanding behaviors are really important. And this is quite a compelling number, that 78% of people research before they purchase. Now, even if you're not using Google, as a lead generator, so you're not doing Google ads, or you're not really going out proactively trying to attract people on Google's platform, the consideration is that you may have your business that someone's referred. They've referred a friend to your business. They've seen a sign. They've seen a social ad. They've seen something that's off search. 78% of people will do their research online before they make a purchasing decision. So you may have a great referral, but as soon as they go for accountants near Elite Bookkeeping Solutions, and they see this kind of approach, because what that tells me when I look at a business like this, what that tells me is that if they're doing bookkeeping, to me, this doesn't really demonstrate a business that has their I's dotted and their T's crossed. They're not a business that's really looking at the detail, particularly in bookkeeping. You'd expect them to be right onto the detail. So for me, this would turn me right off this business. And as I said, it doesn't matter whether you're lead generating through Google. People are going here to see whether or not you are a reputable business or whether you're the right choice. Now, the problem with Google, because it's a search engine, that if someone goes, so you can imagine the dynamic. So let's say, for instance, I heard about Elite Bookkeeping. Someone said they're really great for your business, and I went and did a Google search and I saw this. The issue is now I've gone from a non-crowded environment. So I've gone from somewhere that, there's no competitors, because it's just a friend that's told me about this business, to now on Google, where there's a whole lot of competitors. So now I'm in this cluttered environment. I've been turned off this business, and now I'm going to go to another business. So really got to consider that it's not just lead generating on the platform, it's your brand and reputation on the largest marketplace in the world, basically. So you really need to have a very, very professional presence on Google. So as I mentioned earlier too, that really Google is a part of the puzzle, and it's really what you do off Google that is going to be the difference between whether you're successful or not. Now, really, in any marketing, you need a plan. Now, why it's important for Google is the plan needs to consider not just how you're going to engage people on search, it needs to consider what are the next steps. So what are the next steps in that journey? So when somebody connects with you, then you go through the process of building trust. Then you get basically the setting yourself and building authority. So you're setting yourself apart from your competitors, using content on the platform. But then what are you going to do when you take them off the platform? What is the next step once they see you in search? And if you look at most people's Google listings, they don't have next steps. They're basically just saying, here's my business. This is who we are. Hopefully, hope and pray that you'll get in touch with us. You really need to create urgency, because on Google, people are on Google searching, and you've got seconds, 2 to 3, 4 seconds to get that person to engage. So everything must be around call to actions, lead magnets, motivating, giving them reasons to contact, limited offers, time sensitive action steps, and that should be happening on your Google platform. So when we talk about plan, engage, and convert, these are really the levers that we have available. So if we look at planning, and again, this is really around marketing and understanding of marketing approach, because Google is a platform and you need to wrap a marketing strategy around it. So really, I do a marketing strategy webinar, which really focuses on the planning stage. And what that is really developing a customer avatar. So really identifying who's your target audience, what are they looking for, what solves their problems, what are they moving away from and toward, and then really mapping out the customer journey. So it's knowing, okay, so today I'm going to put a Google listing on, I'm going to put some posts on my Google listing, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive them to a landing page, and I'm going to get them to register for something or buy something. So you need to know all those steps rather than just sort of plonking all of your content on Google and hoping for the best. It has to be an end-to-end plan. And I guess in marketing, one of the most overused sayings is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So really it's understanding, taking it back a step and understanding the planning stage of what you're trying to achieve on Google. And then when you really understand what that conversion process is for the third process, you will then really understand how that you formulate your content on Google. So Google really, when it first started, was really just a search engine. It was very, very basic. It was organic listings. Google My Business came out in 2015 in Australia, launched in Australia. And that really gave businesses the capability to start to market. Now, Google shouldn't be treated like social media, but it's got integrated messaging, it's got posts, and it has these levers within search that you can actually start to put content up to actually get people into a sales funnel. So that's why really with Google, it's very important that you still look at this as an overarching strategy with marketing. Okay, so in terms of planning, a lot of businesses that I actually sit and talk to, I recently spoke with I've done a lot of work with real estate agents, and I spoke to a girl and I asked her why she puts the content she puts on one social media, two on a Google listing, and basically on her website, why is she putting this content online? And this is a very common response that I get is, I don't know. And really they're putting content on because they feel that, and I guess really what's really caused, it's like anxiety really, that people have to always be putting content on search to stay above the scroll. And what happens there, even on search or on Google, people are populating content for content's sake, and it can actually damage you. And an example of that on, obviously here, the content can actually be negative with the bins, but all of your content really must be formulating to build brand, build authority and trust, educate, solve a problem, meet a need, drive an action, or pre-frame a conversion. So if it doesn't fit into those categories, it shouldn't really be posted. There's no need to post it. So in social media, if you start posting content, particularly that is of low value and low engagement, social media platforms like Instagram will start to hide your post or hide your content from your followers. And that's why engagement rates have dropped. So really posting content that has no value is actually a negative for your business. So you really need to start thinking about, particularly on Google, a collage of content that really supports the message you're trying to put forward and the authority that you're trying to build. And this is, I guess, the journey of seconds. Really, this is building awareness, and then what you're going to do for engagement, how you're going to build trust, what actions are you going to drive? So what do you want that person to do once they see your content? And be very aggressive about what those actions are. You've got to really motivate and push and drive and give value for people to take that action immediately. And what's your conversion strategy? Are they going to register for a lead magnet so you can get their details to remarket and market to them? Or are you going to try and engage straight away through chat, or are you going to get them to buy something? So they're really, I guess, a little bit off topic, you could say, of Google in the sense of, how Google should be structured and set up, but they are considerations that you have to have whether you're marketing on any platform. So whether or not we're sitting down developing marketing plans for businesses, whether it be Google, we just put all of those in a platform list, whether it be Google, whether it be direct email, whether it be social media, whether it be radio, or whether it be TV, whatever those platforms are, they're the engagement platforms. We always have a plan. We always then consider the platform, but we always have a conversion strategy that runs off it. And that is why, if I looked at businesses, and any business comes to me and says, you know, they want to improve their conversions on Google, they haven't got a conversion strategy. So really, people are quite lost at what to do next. So let's look at Google. So there's visibility engagement. So there's 4 ways really to build visibility and engagement on Google. There's the Google My Business listing, which we're going to dive into in a minute. There's organic search results. So really where you come up in organic search. There's Google Ads for shopping and Google Ads that come up in your Google search results. Now the difference between the 2 strategies is with organic, Google dictates the terms. So basically, you have to really march to the beat of the drum of what Google wants. But with Google Ads and Google Shopping, you can really dictate and target specific people. So you dictate the terms of where you want to be placed and where you want your ad or where you want to be seen. On organic, you're really up to meeting Google's ranking criteria and understanding what Google values. So Google values your business and prioritizes you high. So if you're going to run with an organic strategy, you really need to understand what Google is. And really, this may sound obvious, but really when people approach Google, they don't really think in these 2 silos. So Google Maps is run out of India. It's a different silo to Google. And Google Search is run out of the US. So they're 2 different. They feed off the information, but they're 2 very different divisions of Google. Now with Google Maps, it's about accuracy. So if you think about it, Google's got a mapping platform and it's competing with other mapping platforms. The most important thing with a mapping platform is accuracy of information, where businesses are. So you don't go down to the local RMS, which I did once, by the way, and it wasn't there. They'd moved. So if that happens a lot to people, they go to a business, they're closed, they're not there anymore, Google will start to lose its credibility in its mapping platform. That will directly affect Google AdWords revenue. So Google is very, very protective of making sure that it has its mapping information correct. And the way it does that is it uses what we call citations. Not a lot of businesses have heard of citations, but citations are pretty much one of the most important things on Google, particularly with Google Maps. So citations are your name, address, and phone number. We'll go through this in a moment when we go through the listings, but you need to make sure that your name, address, and phone number is consistent on Google, also on your website, and also too on all of the directories. Now, one of the issues here is a lot of people haven't heard, if we go across to here, these directories. If I go down this list, if you can see this, some of these directories you may never have heard of. But if you look at this number here, 100, 95, 94, 93, 92, that's basically Google's ranking authority. So what Google says is, I trust the information on this platform 100%, 95%, 94%, 93%. So what you need to do, and a key ranking factor for visibility, particularly in Google Maps, must be to get your name, address, and phone number consistent on these directories. So consistency is not just, my old address and my new address. It's also to your formatting of your address. So your address has to be, so if it's 24/7 Smith Street, Unit B, whatever, that format has to be exactly the same. So what I always suggest to businesses is to get a citation format and make sure that's consistent on every one of the directories. So just improving your citations, if you ran a citation report, you would be shocked at how many directories you're missing from, where your information is incorrect. And the issue you've got is a lot of local directories scrape your information from all different sources. So you've got third-party directories out there that are just kind of putting your information together you're not even aware of. And Google's referencing that. So what it turns around and says, well, the citation score for this business, in other words, this is how much I trust where this business is around 12, 13%. So you want to get that up over 80 to 100%. So that's very, very important to Google Maps. So the most important thing with Google Maps is your citations. And if we come back to organic ranking, and this is where your business shows up in, show you here. So organic ranking over here is where your business is going to come up down in here, in this area here. So obviously you've got your Google My Business listing on the right here. This is Google Shopping, and down here is your organic results. So to feature highly in that area, there are over 200 ranking factors, and I'm not going to go through those now, but you've got the top ones listed next to the phone there. And these are considerations that really tie back to your website. So your website plays a very important role in your ranking in organic search. So one of the things that you can do, and going over this example, and what I can do is in the strategy session, I can go through, what we'll do is we'll do some testing on your website. We can actually see where your, we can actually go through and pinpoint where your website may be letting you down in terms of your ranking authority on Google. But over here, there are things that you can do to give yourself a stronger presence in organic search. And if you look over here, you'll notice that these videos that show here, there's a business here, Press at Cronulla. You can see how they've got videos showing from YouTube, so it gives them a stronger presence here as well. And other things that you can do is create, Google loves local content. So local content, if you've got a local business, you may put some content on your website about a local fete or a local event that's happening. That helps to rank your business higher in search. So there are things that you can do without getting, I guess, into the complexity of this. This is really a web development aspect and how you set up your website. Now, a lot of people talk about SEO and how SEO is really important. On-page SEO should only have to be really done once on your website. So if your website's letting you down, it's because your web developer or whoever it's been put together by hasn't addressed the key issues on your website. So what you want to do is run a website report, pick up all of the issues and address those issues, and that'll help you to be more visible in organic search. Also to the descriptions that you use here, if you look here, your descriptions that you're using here are very important as well, because this is what people are seeing for the first time when they see you in search. So really your website will affect your visibility and conversion, and that is really with speed, compliance, and structure and content. One thing I do want to say is a lot of businesses use a Facebook page as their website. That is really not a good idea. That will not help you in organic search. Google wants to know that you're a legitimate business and that you have a domain, which is called domain authority. So brandlocal.com is our domain. So the domain authority is linked to not only having the domain, but also to the age of the domain. So if you have, say, brandlocal.com for 20 years, that has a higher domain authority. So really to use a Facebook page because it might be cheaper or easier and it's less content that you have to update, it's really going to hurt you in terms of your visibility in Google. So the best advice I can give you is to make sure that you have a website, even if it's very simple, even if it's like a landing page format, but to have a website with a domain is really, really important. So we talk about, and this is really interesting. I mentioned earlier about the bounce rate. And if you look here in the seconds, this is the speed this is how speed, I guess, affects bounce rate. So if you're down to say 15 seconds, you're losing 75% of people who are clicking through to your website. 5 seconds is 38%, 3 seconds is 12%. So you start to really climb at around 4 seconds. So if your website loads slower than say 2 to 3 seconds, then you're really starting to really limit your potential audience. So as I say, it doesn't matter how much work you do on Google or how much work you do in social or how much work you do in email marketing campaigns or anything for that matter. If people have to wait on a mobile device, or particularly where people are more impatient, if they have to wait or it loads slow, they will leave. So a bounce rate is basically that they've just left the page before it's all loaded or without them taking action. So it's very important that you look at load speed on your website. I'll show you. There's a couple of tools, and what I'll do, don't worry about writing them down. I'm happy to share this deck with you and also to the links. But if we look over to here, Google has tools that allow you to check your load speed. So if we were to go into here and say, blackwoods.com.au, you can just put your domain name in here, and this will tell you exactly where your speed is at. And this is critical. This is really critical in terms of if you are taking someone, and as I mentioned earlier, it's really important what you do once you engage someone to convert them. And if your people are bouncing and they're not even getting the conversion page, it's a problem. Okay, so we've got 2.7, 4.5. So it's not too bad. It's not great either. But there's things like that on your website. Don't have video on your homepage. On your first page, it loads. All your content must be, all your images must be actually crunched down, so they're not, you're uploading large 300 DPI images. You must get that load speed down as fast as possible. If you look here as well, you've got obviously desktop and mobile. You can go over here too and look at things like mobile friendly in terms of, I won't go through there. It'll probably be a bit slow, but it'll go through and it'll actually look to find what page errors are showing up on your website as well. So all these tests, and I'll send you the links to these pages where you can run the test. Your website performance is critical. If you're going to run an organic strategy, fair enough. If you're going to run paid ads and sit at the top and take them through to landing pages to convert, that's great. But if you're going organic and you want to show high in organic search and be highly visible, your website is a massive consideration. So I'll send you the links, and what I recommend is running tests and identifying where you're not meeting compliance, where you've got errors, and where your load speed is slow. And just by fixing those things will make a big difference in terms of visibility. Okay. The other thing that consideration too is hosting. A lot of people really overlook this. I'm going to actually get a bit faster here because we're running a little bit slow. Hosting is really important. If you go with shared, which is a cheaper form of hosting, it's slower, it's less secure. And if you go to dedicated cloud hosting, it's faster, it's more secure, and it's obviously premium. It's more money. So you're probably going to spend around about $50, $60 for hosting, but it's well worth it in terms of load speed when you consider how important load speed is to converting. So if you're running all this paid marketing, you could have someone running $100, $150 worth of AdWords a month or a week, yet their hosting plans on $30 versus $60, and they're turning away 70% of their potential conversions or potential target audience. So that extra cost of $30 or whatever it may be is well worth it. Okay, so Google My Business. Just in terms of the setup with Google My Business, I want to explain thing. A lot of businesses, I get a bit stressed when you tell them you don't own your listing, and this is really important. And if you've got fake reviews or negative reviews, you'll know firsthand that you don't really have much control over your Google listing. So I could actually go to your business. I could log on, go to Google. I could actually go to your listing and I can add a photo. So I can add anything. And I've actually come across situations where competitors, there was a company in Bathurst, and the competitor for a cafe took a whole bunch of photos of the local cemetery and put it on their competitor's listing. Now that's classified as local content, and it is hard for Google. It's hard to get Google to remove content, particularly if it's local-based content as well. And it's just not a very good look for the business. So you've just got to understand that managing your listing and keeping an eye on your listing is really important. But Google My Business listing is not there for your business. And this, I guess, shocks a few people, but it's there for consumers. It's there for the general public. So Google creates these as an information platform that has opening hours, reviews, content for the end user, not for the business. So a lot of people get upset when they contact you and they say, look, I've got an image or a review, I can't get rid of it. And I'll explain in a minute how you can get rid of fake reviews. So it's just really important that you manage your listing and make sure the content that's put on your listing is representative of your business. If people are adding content to your business listing and you're not happy about it, there's only really one way: try and get it removed. But if it doesn't meet or breach Google's policies or terms, you can't get rid of it. And the way is to lose that content in producing a lot more content, so your content dominates on your listing. I've had businesses that will actually invite customers to add content to their listing. I think that is a terrible mistake. I wouldn't even encourage that. Reviews, yes, in a controlled environment, but adding content that's low quality images, and it's not necessarily how you want your business represented. So I wouldn't recommend that. I'd be very protective as much as you can about the content that's on your listing. So in terms of, and we'll just run through this quickly, because really in terms of setting up your Google listing is quite easy. You've just got to really run through the process. In a one-on-one session that we do, I can actually take you through any issues you had. I did have an inquiry about how you run an online business that's purely online. And the answer to that question is that really an online business that doesn't actually service customers in an area or through a physical location isn't really permitted to have a Google listing. It's not the types of businesses they want to have online. There are ways around it, and I will explain that in the strategy session with the person that asked that question. But really setting up your listing is quite simple. So if you haven't got a listing, what you would do is you go to google.com/business. Okay, so you'd start here. And most people said that they actually had their listing set up. Now, if you're unsure if you have a listing, what you want to do is you want to Google your business name. So you'll Google your business name. If it doesn't come up on the right-hand side, so if you've got, that was a company I dealt with the other day. Okay, this is the streaming guys I dealt with the other day, and he said, oh, we've got to Google my business listing. I said, well, it's not showing for me, but it was showing for him. Apparently, I didn't see it. But if you Google a business name up here and the business doesn't come up on the right-hand side, chances are you haven't got a Google listing. However, disclaimer with that, don't take that for granted. Google your phone number, your address, and Google all the information about your business to see if something comes up, variations of your name, because the last thing you want to do is create another listing that has the same name, address, and phone number. Now, you may not be able to find it firstly, but if you have duplicate listings, what can happen is Google can delete both listings, permanently delete. And the reason it does that is because it created an algorithm that went through and deleted duplicate listings. One, because it doesn't want duplicate listings, but two, people were creating multiple listings. So if I had one business at, say, Ryde, and I created multiple different listings with the same phone number, people were doing that to try and get more visibility on Google. So what they can do is not only delete it, they can actually block you, and basically it's very difficult to get your listing back. So you want to check that you haven't got a listing before you create a listing. And that's not just a new listing. That's if you're going to create another listing for your business. So check every single location that you have. So there's one listing per location. So if we come up to here, you'll see that once you've actually you've got your listing set up, you can see here that these are listings that I have, that I manage. When you go through here, you can actually go in and start a new listing. So you can actually set up a new listing in here for a particular business, and you can group those together. So let's say, see down here, you've got add a new business. Down into here. So when you're adding a new business, it might be the same business, but they're really referring to a different location. Every business location is referred to as a business. So the key really in Google really is to complete all of the information here, and it is pretty self-explanatory to actually set it all up. So you really want to go through and make sure that on your homepage, I'll go through here. This business hasn't actually set those up properly. If you look at this, go back to here. Okay, so obviously going through here and adding all of your information in here, as I say, is very self-explanatory. Listing all the services that you provide. So rather than go through all that now in each step by step, if you have an issue or you're not sure what you should be putting into a certain area, or you're not sure how it works, or if you actually need it, we can actually do that in a strategy session. And I'll actually go through and have a look at your Google listing as well in terms of the back end. You should be regularly looking at your insights. on your listing as well. This will go through and show you what activity is happening on your listing. So it gives you an idea of how people are actually behaving in search and how they're actually accessing your listing. It also tells you too how many actions that they've done. If you look here, visits to the website, requests for directions through maps, obviously calls, they click on the call button, and messages. One thing you should always, we should definitely set up is messages. I'll take you through, have a look here. The reason why this is important So if we go into so if we go into this business here, this is directly linking out of search. Okay, see down here, never wants to work when you want it to work. Okay. When you activate messages, you can see down the bottom here, this will activate this on your profile. So what it's actually doing is it's giving people the ability to contact you directly. And it comes through, so you're chatting directly. So that gives you an immediate connection. And one of the most important things is to get people to be able to connect really, really quickly through Google. So messaging is really important for your business in terms of connections. Okay, so obviously through photos down here is where you add your photos, but also too videos is added up here as well. Now, Google 360-degree content is really important on your listing. It's a key ranking factor for Google. So you can see here, this is the Google 360. This links in directly from Google Maps. So from a ranking factor in terms of being more visible on Google Maps, is a Google 360-degree virtual tour is important to add to your listing. Obviously in video here as well. Video is a ranking factor as well. So if you can put videos on here, 30-second videos on your listing, and it's all done under the Photos tab, and that's because it used to only be photos, but videos and photos are added through here. But the thing is, when you're adding content to your listing, you want to make sure that the content, as I said before, is all supporting a, you know, the authority that you're trying to build, the message you're trying to build, and it's either informing or it's engaging for your target audience. Down here in posts, posts are really important. You'll see this business uses posts here. Now these posts can go directly to landing pages. You can redeem offers. Now these sit in search to give you an idea how this looks. It sits down here in here. And if you go into Google Maps, it sits in Google Maps with your posts sitting in here. So what this does is really broadens your real estate, I guess, in search and maps, and it gives more clickable, engaging content sitting on your listing. So you really should be running 3 to 4 posts for different things on your listing at any given time, and then that's proven to increase engagement through Google. I'm going to touch on reviews very quickly in a minute. Now, these social icons down here, if you have at the bottom of your listing, this is a thing I get asked a lot. You want to have your social profiles listed on the bottom here. Now you can't add those into your Google My Business listing. So you can't just go, this is my Facebook profile, this is my YouTube profile. It has to be actually picked up from your website. So it's the way you actually structure those profiles on your website to have them listed here. So if you look at, they've got Facebook there. If you look at say for instance down here, you have your main profile sitting at the bottom. So that's how it's structured. You can also see through here that we have multiple posts running as well. So really from this is a chat bot that we've got linked on here. We've obviously got this linked into to go directly into the webinar. Google strategy. So we're linking off to various landing pages from within search. Okay. Covered social icons. Now, conversion. I've got running about 5 or 10 minutes over. Okay, so conversion. This is, I kind of like this picture because I think that what a lot of people do, and I mentioned this before, is that they make it very difficult for people to engage with them. So you've got to simplify everything out of search. And it's like the old, the lolly shops. They put the lollies down in front of the kids. They don't have any obstacles or distractions in the way. It's an obvious choice. It's right in front of them. And that's how your marketing in terms of conversion has to be. So really, when I spoke, and I'll bring up the mobile, earlier I spoke about, was it 78% or 72% of people are looking for immediate answers, or they're looking for immediate information out of Google. So it's really important you have the ability. Now, everybody's different. So this is why I always say run 3 or 4 different strategies. So out of Google, you may have, if we go back over to, say, our listing. Okay, so we'll run an ad here, obviously, for the webinar, so you can go directly through, register for the webinar. And the beauty of this is it's actually coming directly out of search. So you're going from search, clicking on a button, you're creating something that is appealing in terms of some content to click on, and you're actually taking them through to an action. This one here, and I'll show you through, particularly on a mobile device, is chat. And I'll touch on that in a second, how that works. If I go to brand local, we actually have a chat bot, which is a Facebook Messenger chat bot. So it runs off the Facebook platform. It links directly out of our Google profile. So if I click on here, this links directly into our chatbot. So now that person's clicked on that, I actually have their entire Facebook profile, and this runs them through an automated, messenger. So I can have here where
it's Grant, and thanks for joining me here in Messenger. Now, there's 2 optional buttons below. The first one will take you through to how we're helping businesses.
So what this does is just gives me an immediate connection. So I'll in some cases use chatbots. In some cases I'll use Messenger straight out of Google Messenger. In other cases I'll use landing pages. So you should always be running multiple strategies. And this is the idea, this is the beauty of posts. And what you want to do is continually change these images, because sometimes images work and other times images don't. And really, I've been in marketing for a long time. And I'll be honest, sometimes you don't know why they work and why they don't. Sometimes the image or the promotion that you run, you think it's going to be great and it's the worst one. So you've really got to start to really test and measure. And this is a really good way of doing it through search. And you can see here, even if you go down, it's giving me more real estate in search. So this is quite boring over here. So this is giving me something for people to click on. So you're using images that your target audience would be, would motivate them or would create curiosity, and use those in search and linking to all different things. So some people want chat, some people want to go to a landing page, some people want instant answers, some people want a lot of information. So you've really got to cater for different people and have multiple strategies going at once. And then you begin to learn what really works out of search. Okay, so let's talk about conversion. So I mentioned before that the awareness, engagement, trust, and action and conversion, that process is seconds. So you really need to be really driving that next action and creating motivation. I don't use, for reasons why I've explained earlier with load speeds and issues with websites, and also too, the fact that you're sending someone to a web page, you should never ever run a Google ad campaign and send someone to your homepage. that is a cardinal sin in terms of marketing, because what you're doing is if you've got, say, 2 seconds, you've got 2 to 3 seconds to convert someone, you pay, your website takes 3 to 4 seconds to load. So some people may hang in there, but then you expect them to get to your website and they've got to put all the pieces together and they're going to leave. You will never convert them in a million years. So if your conversion rates are down at 0, then that would probably be a reason if you're sending people to your homepage. I always send people to a landing page. Loads faster. I can put a message that is purely to do with that particular offer. So if the ad matches the landing page or matches the next step in the where I'm taking that person out to, it must match. It must be congruent with what they've actually clicked on. So don't send people to a website when you're running ads or running posts. Messages I prefer to, as I mentioned a minute ago, because it's instant and we're in an instant world. People want to ask a question. When you open, do you sell this? Can you cater if you're a restaurant? Do you cater for vegetarian, vegan, whatever? People want those answers. And if you're not ready to answer those questions or available to answer those questions, then people will move on. So that's why I said before, is to have the Google My Business app on your phone. So if someone asks a question or someone leaves a review, you can reply to that review instantly. So you must reply to every review, negative or positive. And I'm going to touch on reviews as the last thing. Chatbots obviously are very good too, because chatbots, where Messenger is okay in Google, Messenger chatbots through Facebook Messenger, we develop full AI Messenger chatbots that can really cater for almost any question asked. We can use chatbots to log people into user accounts. We can guide people to different products to buy and sell. We can actually have a front-facing chatbot, which really drives the customer conversion process directly out of search. So chatbots are a real, I guess, a more advanced form of messaging and automation. And one of the great things about chatbots, and I can expand on this if you want to know more about chatbots when we chat, is that chatbots they use AI, and they're also very good for automating remarketing. So as soon as someone connects with that bot, they go into our funnel, and the actual chatbot manages all of the connection points. Hey, haven't heard from you for a while, and continues that conversation going to really build and push people through a funnel. So chatbots are really the way of the future in terms of marketing, but having those things linking directly out as an option straight out of search is gold. And obviously you're trying to drive a phone call or a visit in store or at your premises. But really the 4 icons to the left are all about, getting engagement directly out of search. Okay, with landing pages. Landing pages must be structured in this format. This is a proven format that works, and it's addressing the majority of your dialogue is addressing the problem that people have. And this is why I mentioned before, even though you're using Google as a platform, so using Google as a platform to actually connect with people, you need to know that next step. And that's why you're identifying right here at the beginning when you do your avatars or your customer problems, objections, moving away goals, moving toward goals. You're understanding how to formulate that conversion. So on the conversion page, if you don't highlight the problem or address the problem, then you're not going to engage people. So you need to really show them that you understand the problem. You need to talk about how your product can solve that problem. You need to talk about a promise that this is what it's going to do, and it's a guarantee of doing this, and it's been done before. Proof is obviously in reviews and case studies, and then process. So that's really the priority of order when you talk about a lot of focus on the problem, a lot of focus, lesser focus on the product, promise, proof, and process. So managing all these different buttons here. This is an alarming thing for me, because I couldn't imagine marketing. If someone said to me, I can't use call to actions and lead magnets to actually get people to do things like limited offer, get this free ebook or whatever your lead magnet is. If I didn't have those levers at my disposal, there'd be no way in the world you succeed in marketing. People have to get something instantly. They've got to be able to download for a no-risk trial. You've got to actually use these ways of people connecting with you. And 72% of businesses, according to Small Business Trends, don't have call to actions on their website. So this is the problem, that when people go to the website, they don't know what to do. So what you've done is you've done all that work to get them there. You've got to convert. So it doesn't matter how successful you are in Google or how many people see you in Google. If you don't get this off search process sorted out and have those call to actions and lead magnets, and you've got to try multiple different ones. And that's another reason why every ad I run and every post I do links to a different landing page. It's all A/B split testing. I'm testing every single part of the process. I'm testing how many views I get on search, how many people go out of search, what my bounce rates are, what my load speeds are, where I'm heat mapping pages to find out where people are going, and I'm testing multiple different offers. So when I talk about doing offers, this is a very generic lead magnet or call to action. And the reason I'm using this as an example is because people think that a call to action is just a form and a button. But really, what you want to do when you test your call to actions is you want to make sure that you're testing the headings. So these headings will change. And you'll notice that what I've done in here is you won't learn these strategies anywhere else. So I'm actually making people understand this is the only place you're going to get this. No one else is doing this. And then under there, I've got instantly received. So I'm meeting that need of people wanting things instantly. And then down here, I'm using as less information on my form as possible. Obviously, they need an email to email the ebook. He wants a phone number because he wants to actually call them to be able to convert them into a customer name. You don't want to put too many fields in here because it'll lower your conversion rates. But I cover this in absolute detail in the marketing strategy webinar, which I'm happy to send you an invite to. But this is really what you want to start playing around with. And it's not just wording. It's sizing, it's button colors, it's positioning on your website or on your landing page. So you need to have these sorts of things. And if you want to know lead magnets you can use for your business, I'm happy to discuss those too when we have that strategy session. Now, the last thing here, and then I'm going to get on to reviews. Now, the last thing here, if you look at the way I've done this, and I spoke about conversion strategy, is it doesn't matter what platform I'm coming off. What the real engine room for me is what's happening in this middle section here. So these are my lead magnets, my landing pages and lead magnets. I'm testing all different lead magnets, and I'm using Google Posts to push through to these lead magnets. Without these lead magnets and conversion tools, you're not going to succeed. So I could sit here and tell you how to get to number one in Google or how to be seen by more people, but it means nothing. I mean, it's important, but it means nothing if you don't have these things here set up. So you can see in Google, we're pushing straight to Google Messenger. We're also pushing to the website on the main listing. Social does the same. Now I'm running posts on Google and similar themed ads on social. I use a slightly different native strategy because I'm having to interrupt on social. So the ads are a little bit more entertainment, a little bit more kind of social environment skewed. Whereas these posts here are more informative, more information, answering questions approach. But they lead into here, and these pages speak or are congruent with these ads. That's why they're going to separate pages. Believe me, if you don't run this strategy, you're really kicking stones down the road. It does not work. And we've run up to, for one business, I've run up to 20 or 30 of these at any given time just to test what's actually converting the best. You'll see here, I'll post, I always go through a chat bot. And as I mentioned before, the chat bot actually automates and takes the customers through the options of these pages so I don't have to get involved. But what's actually happening is this is what you want to design here, and it doesn't matter what platform you push to. So there's strategies to get more visible and more engaging on social. There's strategies to get more visible and engaging on Google, but conversion happens down in here. Okay, let me talk about reviews. Now, reviews very quickly are really important. And the most important thing about reviews is that you respond to every review. If you get a negative review, it's a legitimate review and negative, how you respond will help you build your brand. Never, ever argue, never, ever disagree. Always be understanding. It's the old, I guess, Telstra worker mentality, or the air hostess. I've heard this saying before, is they understand everything, but really can't help with anything. They're not argumentative. So at the end of the day, you want to use that as an opportunity to respond where it builds your integrity in your brand, because people read those. People love reading through those sorts of things. And if you actually come at them with a response that is aggressive, or it's confronting, that only inspires them to do more in there. So it actually not a good look for your business. But respond to every review. It is a ranking factor or ranking criteria for Google. If you have negative fake reviews, now that's not a review that is legitimately an unhappy customer. If it's a fake review, and the way you can test if it's a fake review that when you go through into a review here, what you do is you click on the person's name in the review, and you can see how many reviews this person's left. This person's left 1 review. If that was a fake review and there was no photo there, I'd start to ask a few questions. If someone's left 20 reviews and they've left a negative 1 on your review, chances are it's not a negative fake review. It's a negative review. It's not a fake review. Now, so you understand with how things work, Google is obligated to remove fake reviews. So if you go through and you have any doubt whether it's a fake review, you can go through your Google My Business listing and you can request Google to review that review, if I want a better word. And what Google do is they have tools. They can tell whether someone's set up an account and it's never had any Gmail activity. It hasn't done anything, hasn't logged into anything. There's no activity online except that 1 review. It'll be deemed a fake review. And by the law in Australia with ASIC is that Google must delete it. So if it's deemed a fake review or a fake account that has made that review, Google will delete the account, and that takes out the review. So it costs you nothing to go through and check that with Google. But if they've got multiple, I can say if they've got multiple reviews and some are positive, some are negative, your chances of getting it removed are not good. Your only option is to be very measured in the way that you respond and try and take the dialogue offline so they're not communicating online. Reviews are really important because reviews really sway social proof. And I don't know about you, but reviews in terms of Google reviews for me are really important. An interesting thing about reviews is getting 5-star reviews. Everyone wants to get 5-star reviews. It actually looks better and it's a better ranking position if you have some reviews at 4.5 or 4 stars and your overall review is less than 5. Google deems it pretty unbelievable that everyone's got 5-star reviews. So don't worry if you get a lesser review and it drops your score. What I want to show you too in here with reviews, because reviews are super important. If I come into here, just a bit of a tip. The other thing too with reviews, just be very careful because you're not allowed to actually solicit reviews. You're not allowed to say if you do a review, I'll give you a discount or something. It can actually have your listing deleted if Google finds out about that. So if I go to, there's a link in your Google listing. And if I go to reviews, so if I go to look here, okay, see down here on this is on your home page on your Google listing. Every business should use this, and it should be on your email footer. It should be on everywhere. If you're happy with our business, leave us a positive review or leave us a review. So if you click on here, this will actually give your linking your review URL. So if you cut and paste that and put it as a link in your email, or if you've done business with someone and you want to send them directly there, this is the link. Now, if you want to get reviews, I've done a lot of reviews for businesses and help them to sort of structure to get reviews to build social proof. And what you want to do is if you send off an email and say, can you give me a review? Your chances of getting the review are very slim. If you're serious about building quality reviews, what I always suggest is that what you do is you contact the customer, you ask them a few questions about your service, you write the review in a very, very simple format, which is reflective of what they've said. So you can ask sort of, loaded questions. And then what you do is you send them an email with the review and with that link. And you say to them, look, if you're happy with this, I think I've got what you said down pat. If you're happy with that, be happy to edit it if you want and just click that review and you can post it. Your chances of getting that review posted skyrocket because you've done the work for them. And not only that too, you've taken the time to go through that process. So they're more likely to reciprocate and put that review up for you. So that really concludes going basically the webinar. But as I said, this may raise a lot of questions and I no doubt it will. And this is why I put a half an hour strategy session in for every business to go through. And what we do is we'll run some speed tests. We'll run some compliance tests on your website. We'll check the health, I guess, of your website and point out what you need to fix. We can discuss lead magnet strategies and conversion strategies and call to actions and how you can use those. If you have any issues that are relating to your listing that you need specifically to address, you can write those down and we can cover those off. So that half an hour session, which you can book, you need to book it today though, just in terms of so I can cover off my calendar. But if you book that session, that is really part of this webinar. So this is really just an overview of all the considerations that you need to look at when you're marketing on Google. But I've also deliberately prioritized that it's not just Google, that you can do everything so well on Google and still fail. You can get to number one on Google like this accountant and still fail. So it's really positioning yourself on Google takes them to the step to the next page, but it's what happens off listing that is really going to determine whether you convert. Did anyone want to ask some questions that I might be able to answer just to wrap things up? You do get copies of the slides, Hope. What I'll do is I'll send out a copy of the slides. I will send out some links to the actual speed test so you can actually do your own tests with the links. So yeah, you don't have to worry about really taking notes or taking pictures or screenshots. I'm just going to scroll through some of these questions here. Okay, so okay, this question here. I'm not a shop front. I work from home, so I don't want to list my home address for safety issues. I use a PO box and Google Maps, which makes sense. I've said, yeah. You can actually hide your address when you actually do your setup on your listing. Jean, if you want me to show you how to do that, we can actually go through. If you've got your logins for your Google listing. And if anybody, I'll just show you this too. If you book in for this session, one thing I'd suggest you do beforehand is make me a manager of your, just temporarily of your, you can boot me out, just so I can actually have a review of your listing before, let me show you how to do that. So if you go to your Google listing and log in, because what I'll do is I'll do a review of your listing for you. Over here on the right, the left-hand side, you've got users. If you go to users, you can actually go in here and then just add a manager in here for, I can't do that because I'm not the owner of this account, but if I was the owner, it would come up and say add. So you can add Grant at brandlocal.com. And I can actually review that before we go in. Now you can just go through that exact same process and boot me out. So it's not, I can't go in and do anything to it. So it just allowed me to go through and sort of highlight, I guess, what you need to address. And Jean, I can actually look at yours before the listing, and I can actually show you how to hide your address. What's a front-facing chatbot? What goes into building a chatbot? And what are the steps? There's a lot of chatbot building tools. There's two steps really with chatbots that you need to consider. One is architecture, and two is technical, the technical ability to be able to create it. There's a chatbot platform that's quite easy to use called ManyChat, M-A-N-Y, ManyChat, and that will actually link into Facebook Messenger, but you can actually use it to plug it into anything where there's a banner, a website, a post on Google, social media. You can actually have links in your social media that link through to the chatbot. So that's ManyChat's a great platform to do it. If you've got some technical skills, you'll be fine. But there's a lot of tutorial style videos as well related to chatbots. But with chatbots, like anything, I guess, is learning Facebook, learning YouTube, learning chatbots, learning landing pages. Technically, the skills, you can go on YouTube and you can learn the skills if you've got the time. But it's understanding really the marketing approach, how to layer that actual the messaging. One of the suggestions I always make is keep it very simple to start with and then build on what works. But chatbots are definitely the way of the future in terms of automation. So for me as a marketer, a lot of the larger companies that we deal with, we're building, if you log on, if you've used chat through Telstra or Optus and things like that, they're becoming quite a front facing. When I say front facing, it's really business to customer. And the beauty of a chatbot is not only does it get the initial connection. So if I see a chatbot, I'm more likely to click on it because I can get an instant answer. And it's like messaging. So people are used to doing that on their phones. It gets their information, downloads it straight away. So you've got it for marketing purposes. And then most importantly too, it'll actually manage the remarketing. So the chatbot will actually bring that lead in, but it'll also manage that lead through a sales funnel. So you can create that. It gets quite technical. But for a small business, you can use it just simply to engage with the customer and to answer key questions. What are your opening hours? Or product questions. Good thing about a chatbot is it doesn't have to be totally automated either. So what it can do is if the chatbot goes, I can't answer that question, and I might even do a webinar on chatbots, but the chatbot will connect them with a human. So if I've got a chatbot and 80% of customer inquiries are handled through the chatbot, but 20% go through to the keeper into sales, then that's a success. So they're good for automation. Mira, just mentioning too with the home address, I can help you with the home address issue. It might be something you haven't set up quite correctly with that if it's showing up on Google Maps. No, it doesn't. It doesn't having, if you don't have a listing showing on Google, what Google wants is Google wants to know you're a legit business. You have a name, address, and you have a phone number, and that is unique to a listing. So you've got to make sure that you do not duplicate your name, address, and phone number on your listings. Don't have the same phone number on those listings because it can be actually flagged as a duplicate account. So what I would do, I don't know why the camera's gone down, but we'll switch over here. Okay, we've lost the camera. Okay, interesting. So what we've so if you've got a home address that's listed with Google as a home address, so essentially, okay, I think our camera's gone down. Can everyone hear me okay if I just switch off that camera? All Google wants to know is it's a legitimate business. It has that it's not an online business or it's not a fake business. So essentially what Google wants is to just basically confirm you're legitimate. It doesn't matter whether it shows on the public, in the public forum or in the public space. That's not a problem. Just going through these questions. So there's a lot of questions around local businesses and hiding your address. That's easy to do. But you can imagine with Google, really these sessions and some of the Google strategies that I do is a full day. So it's very, very difficult to get everything out that you need to do. But I think that really the most important thing and takeaways from this particular webinar is that it's not all about Google. Google is an important platform, but it's not all about Google. If you make it all about Google, you won't succeed. Google is only a feeder of leads into a funnel. And I think that businesses that just focus on being number one, it's okay to chase rainbows, I always say, but you've got to know what you're going to do when you get there. So the whole idea is conversion, and I'll help you with that as much as I can if you sign up for that strategy session. So is there any other questions? I do apologise because that for some reason that camera's decided to go down. All right, well, if you're interested in doing the strategy session, just be sure to go to that link and you can choose a time that's convenient for you. And what I'll do is I will do a little bit of research before that so we can move through things pretty quickly. And if you want me to go and have a look at your Google listing, by all means, you can just put me as a manager 24 hours before and we can change that back afterwards. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I hope that was informative. If you'd like to leave a Google review on brandlocal.com, that would be, or brand local, I should say, that'd be great. And I hope that you do do register for that strategy session, only because it'll actually start to put the pieces together in a very practical sense for your business. So thanks again. And I'm very apologetic that we've run over, but there's a lot to get through.